Week 7 was a big week for the show. It was an hour and 34-minute episode. And that was exciting. It was exciting to spend that much time in the world. The first hour of television, we got the first big fight, I think, in the series. Um, and it was very choreographed. It was kind of stupid. It was between Matthew and another guy at the oil rig who framed Steven and messed things up. I completely forget all the details, but it was. And that fight went on for like 3 minutes of screen time. That was something else. But it was very choreographed. Like, so, yeah. I will say this. By the end of the episode, I was stunned. Not the hour and a half cut of it, which is the one that I watched, which had the 2 episodes play back to back, without a break, without credits or anything. That's the way it would have aired initially. It was obvious where they would have stopped it, though. They had a scene when Blake, he really desires to have a child with Krystle. And he discovers that Krystle is taking birth pills. And this does not go over well at all with Blake. And Blake forces himself upon her very harshly, and it was extremely awkward to watch. It was terrible. Absolutely horrible. And I wondered if they would have gone much farther than they did today, although I thought they pushed it pretty far. Anyways, it was unbelievably uncomfortable. The most terrifying scene in the show so far. And maybe one of the most realistic moments of the show so far as well. And I respected the show for going so dark because it was scary. It was not fun to watch. And it's not supposed to be. That scene is supposed to be horrific. It's supposed to make your skin crawl. And for that, it was very successful at what it set out to do. I did have a problem with within the next hour of television time. She forgave him pretty quickly, forgave him right away. And I don't know if that makes sense for Krystle's character, although Krystle seems very nice, seems very forgiving, at least at the moment. And also, they can't really split them up just yet. But part of me wonders if it was too soon to have the forcing of himself upon her. Maybe they should have waited for when he discovers that she was the one who gave his rival Matthew the money. Speaking of which, Fallon discovered that she had done that within the episode. And Fallon was, once again, pretty boring this episode. What are they doing with her character, guys? So boring. She was so awesome in Oil, so cool in the pilot, and now she's just, they want to make her slightly mean, but nowhere near as vicious as she was in the pilot. That's disappointing. I had such high hopes for her character. But she also tracks down Steven's old lover, Ted. Or is it Tim? I'm sorry. I should have done a little bit more research before I did this little review. But yeah, she tracks him down and pretty much says, get out of his life. Because he wants power, he wants money. And he's the other guy, the lover is like, yeah, but he wants love. And that sort of thing. Like, he deserves that, or something like that. And then that gets us into Steven's storyline this episode, which was bizarre and uncomfortable. Um, there was a lot of uncomfortable moments this week. Steven ends up getting even closer to Claudia because Claudia and Matthew are having marriage problems. And their daughter is discovering this, and she's uncomfortable with this, and she quits the school play. Their daughter's a great character. I like the character a lot. And I like the daughter's friend. I forget her name, too. She was really nice and not a type of friend I would expect from high school. Especially in a type of show like this. I've seen some of the other, some of these other shows have girls in high school. Knots Landing, for example. And I liked Lindsay the best out of all of them. Anyways, Claudia is having marriage problems, and so she kind of courts a single guy at a bar. And she gets very close, and then he tries to force himself on her, and she runs away and calls Steven. And he comes and picks her up, and they go off to some cabin somewhere. And then they make love together, which was uncomfortable. Even though you didn't really see anything, you only saw after the fact. But she's like, no matter what happens, Steven, you're gentle, so you'd be gentle with any gender. It's like, oh, that's comforting to know. Here was my problem with that storyline and the moment was, I understand part of what they're doing. Steven has daddy issues. He has serious daddy issues. And he wants to prove himself as a man to Dad. And so this was his way of saying, yeah, Dad, I can make love to a woman. And I can be good at it. But the problem was, this storyline just happened last week when he went to the bordello with Walter. And once he got there, he was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because I'm a man. And he couldn't go through with it because he knew that he couldn't do it. It wasn't the way he went. Slided, whatever you want to call it. And so this is backtracking. This is completely against everything that they established. And the problem is, this would be fine of a storyline if Steven was severely uncomfortable in his sexuality. But Steven is not uncomfortable in his sexuality. He is very confident. And he fights his father about it a lot. He fights with Fallon about it. And just, I don't know. I have to talk about this because this was so awful. This was probably about 5 minutes before the end of the episode. And there was a scene when Walter was playing the piano, and it was the most pointless scene of the show so far. It was so boring. What was the point? It had nothing to do with anything. It was just so awful. There was a lot of good moments in this episode. There were. And I thought overall it was the best episode of the show so far. Which is good. Dynasty so far has not been one of those that, it's getting better every episode, because it's not. There's definitely some clunkers. It started out pretty good, okay, and it really, that second episode was god-awful. It was terrible. Shame on them. Why would anyone tune in after that episode? It was so bad. No, this was good. I liked it. I thought it was fun. And next week we're back to just a one episode thing. So that's good. Am I excited for the next week? Yes. However, I am infuriated by how they're handling Steven's storyline because I don't think it makes any sense. And And I don't think they can decide what they want to do with Steven, because either Steven is completely comfortable in his sexuality, or he is trying to prove himself because he's uncomfortable. I don't like that they're doing both, especially so close together. I think what it is that they just didn't know how to write gay characters in the 80s. And this was one of the really early gay characters on television. Anyways, I might actually give that episode like a 4 out of 5, actually. In comparison to everything else that has been building up, it was the best so far. Will the next one be better? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's going to dip down a little bit. I mean, I've said this before. I know that this is not what the show overall is going to do, and it's going to change dramatically once the second season starts. But for now, it's okay. It's fine. Is it great? No. Is it boring? Yes. Is it fun? Sometimes. It just kind of is right now. It's still fighting to be Dallas, which is unfortunate. It needs to distance itself from Dallas more than anything. I think eventually Aaron Spelling figured that out. And they did. I'm pretty confident that they will. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. And if you're still going with me, I hope you are. We will see each other next week.